So now it's time to associate our billing profile to an address. That is, we actually have to create the address app as well as the model itself. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and come in here, Python manage.py, start app addresses. And inside of this addresses app, I'm going to create obviously that new class, and it's going to be address, and it's going to take in models.model. So why is it in its own app? Well, I think a lot of this is because in the future, I might want to have CRUD or some views for this particular model. So I'm actually going to keep it inside of its own app. Again, we want to make our apps do one thing and one thing really well. In the case of addresses, I mean, they could live in the billing model. They could also live in the order model or even in the account model. So there's a few different places where they could live. So it probably makes sense to just put them in their own in that case, right? Whereas a billing profile probably wouldn't live in the addresses app. It probably also wouldn't live in the orders app. It makes sense to be in the billing app. So for that reason, we put the address app or address model in the addresses app itself, also including the idea that eventually we're going to have, the create, update, retrieve, and also delete views specifically for those addresses. So that's something else to consider while we're creating this. So a user address is going to be related to a few things, right? So I want to make sure that my user address has the relation to either my user or my user billing profile or my billing profile. So I want it to be either or. This can be a little bit complicated going forward. So instead of doing it either or, I'm just going to have it related to that billing profile, and assuming that when I actually create my user, I actually create a billing profile for them too. So when your user registers, they will have a billing profile. So that will make it a little bit easier to work with that billing profile in our addresses. So I'm going to bring it in from billing.models, import billing profile. And we'll just say billing underscore profile equals to models.foreign key billing profile. Now in this case, I want to have many different addresses related to any given billing profile, as in any given user or any given guest user. And then I want to say, I want to give a street. Maybe we'll just say address line 1, and that's going to be equals to models.char field or character field, and we'll do a max length of 120. That should be plenty. Address line 1 is going to be a required one. Address line 2 is not going to be required. So we'll say null equals to true and blank equals to true. And then we want to have a city most likely. So again, I'm going to have a char field here for a city. And then, any other things beyond that. So state, like a zip code, or we'll call it a postal code. I think more people understand postal code than zip code. We'll probably have multiple things like that. And I probably want to have like maybe a country. Again, depending on where you are in the world, you could have this sort of thing. So as far as the way that these are going to work, we're just going to leave them absolutely basic at this time, as in all of these fields are required with this exception. In my case for country, I'm just going to put a default of United States of America. That's because that's where I am. I mean, long term, if you're shipping worldwide, you would probably change this, right? You would probably allow them to select based off of their location, or have a list of countries that are already there. There's a lot of things on how you could actually improve this itself. So we're going to go ahead and make our str function here. And really all I'm going to do is return the billing profile, self.billing profile. And I'm going to do the string of that billing profile item. So the str method, let's go ahead and check our billing profile. That actually returns an email. So it returns the billing profile email, which is kind of nice. Okay, so this is our address, but notice that it doesn't say shipping or billing address. So I can actually create one more line in here, and that is type. So I'm going to come in here and bring it right above, and I'll just say type equals to this. The reason that's blue is because that is actually a Python name. So I could give it like an address type. Let's just call it address type, just so there's no confusion there with that. And with this, I'll just say address types equals to that tuple. We've seen this before already. And of course, it's going to be billing, and then shipping, and shipping. Okay, and then we want to put our address type in here, and we'll just say choices equals to these address types. Okay, cool. So we now have this, ability to create an address, or at least save this into our database, which is really nice, right? So that's something that we'll probably end up using quite a few times, if not just in what we're doing right now. So since we have this, let's go ahead and add it into the admin as well. So from.models, import addresses, or address, and the admin.site.register address. Okay. And then the next thing is in our settings, we want to bring in these addresses to our app. So addresses here, save that. And let's go ahead and run our migration. So python manage.py, make migrations, and then python manage.py migrate. Cool. So what do we have to do now? Well, we probably have to create a form, right? So a form that's actually going to handle these addresses. And then we are probably going to want to, actually display this form within where our billing is. So something we haven't talked a whole lot about yet is a form that is called a model form. So we haven't really covered it yet. We've only done basic built-in forms. What a model form is, if you look in the admin, it's essentially what the admin renders. So if I go to addresses and go to add address, this is basically a model form. So it has some of these things already in here by default, right? I didn't actually have to create a form for the admin to do it. So I can do something very similar to that and do forms.py and then do from Django import forms, and then from models import address. And then we'll just say class address form. And this is forms.model form. And then we say class meta model equals to address. Okay. So this being rendered out will render exactly like this unless we make some changes. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this in to my cart. So inside of carts in the view here, I'm going to go ahead and bring in this form. So from addresses.forms, import address form. Okay. So address form equals to this. And we'll just say billing address form also equals to this. Okay, so it's two instances of the same exact thing. And let's go ahead and add it into our context. So obviously the first one is the shipping address form. The second one is the other one. Okay, so let's go ahead and look in our checkout here. And we've got if not billing profile. That's good for the billing profile. And then else we've got our checkout. So realistically, if we have a billing profile, we probably already have our order being formed, right? And we do. We have it right here. So what I also want to check is if the order has a shipping address or billing address. So inside of this other else, let's go ahead and tab these in and tab this stuff in. We'll just say if if not object dot shipping address or not object dot billing address. Actually, we'll say and. And then end if. And then we'll start from here right away in the next one.